The ego purchase that keeps you broke. There's this parking lot outside a mid-level corporate office building where I grab coffee sometimes, and every morning it's the same thing. Rows and rows of massive pickup trucks. Brand new Ford F-150S, Chevy Silverados, Ram 1500S, all shining in the sun, most of them spotless, clearly not being used to haul lumber or tow anything. And the people climbing out of them? They're wearing business casual, carrying laptops, heading into offices to sit at desks all day. And here's the thing that gets me. The Ford F-Series has been the best-selling vehicle in America for over 40 years straight. Not the best-selling truck. The best-selling vehicle, period. More than any sedan, any SUV, any minivan. We're talking nearly a million F-Series trucks sold every year. And the average price? Around $60,000 to $70,000 for the configurations most people actually buy. Some go way higher, $80,000, $90,000, even over $100,000 for the fancy trims. My name is Jack, and I spend way too much time thinking about consumer behavior, status signaling, and specifically why people make purchasing decisions that absolutely wreck their financial futures, while genuinely believing they're making smart, practical choices. And the pickup truck phenomenon is probably the clearest example of what I call the ego purchase. The thing you buy not because you need it, but because of what you think it says about you. Because of how it makes you feel. Because everyone else has one and you don't want to be left out. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. For the vast majority of people driving these $70,000 trucks, a $25,000 sedan would do everything they actually need a vehicle to do. Get them to work, haul groceries, transport the kids. But the sedan doesn't make them feel successful. It doesn't project strength or capability or the image of being someone who works with their hands even if they don't. It doesn't give them that hit of status that comes from driving something big and powerful and expensive. And this isn't about judging anyone's choices. This is about understanding the psychological mechanism that keeps people broke despite making decent money. Because when you're spending $800 to $1,200 a month on a truck payment, plus insurance, plus gas for a vehicle you don't actually need, that's $10,000 to $15,000 a year. That's not going toward building wealth. That's the ego purchase that keeps you on the financial treadmill for decades, while you wonder why you can't seem to get ahead. The pickup truck status symbol. Let's talk about how we got here, because pickup trucks becoming the ultimate status symbol is actually kind of a fascinating cultural evolution that's happened mostly in the last 20 years. Go back to the 1990s, and trucks were work vehicles. They were what contractors drove, what farmers used, what people who genuinely needed to haul stuff owned. They were practical, often beat up, definitely not luxurious. If you wanted to signal success, you bought a Lexus or a BMW or a Mercedes. Trucks were blue-collar transportation. But then something shifted. Truck manufacturers started making them more comfortable, more luxurious, more refined. Leather interiors, premium sound systems, all the tech features. And they started marketing them not as work vehicles but as lifestyle vehicles. The commercials showed trucks at the lake, trucks on mountain roads, trucks as symbols of American independence and rugged individualism. And it worked. Spectacularly. Trucks went from purely functional to aspirational. They became the vehicle that said, I'm successful enough to afford this, but I'm still a regular person. I'm not some coastal elite in a luxury sedan. I'm authentic. I'm capable. I could build something with my hands if I wanted to, even though I work in insurance. The genius of this marketing is that it taps into multiple psychological needs simultaneously. There's the status signaling. This is an expensive vehicle, and owning it demonstrates financial success. There's the identity projection. I'm the kind of person who's tough and practical, not soft or pretentious. And there's the practical rationalization. I might need to haul something someday, so this is actually a sensible purchase. I know a guy who works in IT, has never towed a trailer in his life, lives in a suburban neighborhood, and drives an $85,000 F-250 Super Duty diesel. When I asked him why he needs such a capable truck, he said, well, you never know when you might need to help someone move, or what if I want to buy furniture, or maybe I'll get a boat someday. He's had the truck for 4 years. He's hauled something in the bed exactly twice. He doesn't have a boat. But he makes the $1,100 monthly payment religiously because the truck makes him feel like the successful, capable person he wants to be. And he's not unusual. This is the norm. Studies have shown that the vast majority of pickup truck owners rarely or never use their trucks for truck stuff. They're daily drivers, commuter vehicles, status symbols on wheels. But they cost twice or three times what a practical car would cost, and that difference is pure ego expense. The real cost nobody calculates. So let's actually run the numbers on what this ego purchase costs over time, because I think most people genuinely don't realize how destructive it is to their wealth-building potential. Let's say you buy a $70,000 F-150. You put $5,000 down and finance $65,000 at 7% interest over 6 years, which is pretty typical right now. Your payment is about $1,080 per month. Over 6 years, you'll pay about $77,000 total, $12,000 in interest alone. But wait, we're not done. Insurance on a $70,000 truck is probably $200 to $300 a month, depending on your age and location. Let's say $250. Gas for a truck averaging 20 miles per gallon, when you're driving 15,000 miles a year, is going to run you maybe $2,500 to $3,000 annually, so call it $250 a month. Maintenance, tires, repairs over 6 years, probably another $5,000 total. So your all-in cost over 6 years is roughly $77,000 for the truck, $18,000 for insurance, $18,000 for gas, $5,000 for maintenance. That's $118,000 over 6 years, or about $19,700 per year, or $1,640 per month. Now let's compare that to buying a reliable used sedan for $25,000 cash. No payment. Insurance is maybe $100 a month. Gas is $150 a month, because better fuel economy and probably less driving, since you're not constantly finding excuses to drive your cool truck. Maintenance over 6 years, maybe $3,000. Total cost, $25,000 for the car, $7,200 for insurance, $10,800 for gas, $3,000 for maintenance. That's $46,000 over 6 years, or about $7,700 per year. The difference? $12,000 per year, every single year. For 6 years, that's $72,000 that you spent on ego instead of on building wealth. But here's where it gets really painful. If you had invested that $12,000 per year in a simple index fund averaging 8% returns, after 6 years you wouldn't just have $72,000. You'd have about $89,000 because of compound growth. And if you kept doing that for 20 years instead of constantly upgrading to new trucks, you'd have over $550,000. That's the true cost of the ego purchase. Not just the money you spent, but the wealth you didn't build, the compound interest you didn't earn, the financial security you postponed by a decade or more. And here's the thing that really gets me. Most people buying these trucks think they're doing fine financially. They can afford the payment, right? They make $80,000 or $100,000 a year. The payment is only 15% or 20% of their gross income. They can swing it. But affordable and wise are not the same thing. Yeah, you can afford it in the sense that you won't default on the loan, but you can't afford it in the sense that it's preventing you from building wealth, from investing, from achieving financial independence, from having options in life beyond working until you're 70. The comparison trap. Here's where the psychology gets really insidious. Once trucks became the status symbol, they created this comparison spiral where everyone needs to keep up. Your coworker shows up in a new F-150 Lariat. It's beautiful, it's got all the features, and suddenly your 5-year-old sedan feels inadequate. You start thinking, I make as much as he does. Why am I driving this boring car while he's got that truck? What does that say about me? So you convince yourself you deserve a truck too. You go to the dealership, and the salesperson is incredibly good at their job. They show you trucks that are only $200 more per month than the base model, but with way better features. They emphasize the monthly payment, not the total cost. They get you focused on how you'll feel driving it, not what it costs to own it. And you drive off the lot in your new $68,000 truck feeling like $1,000,000. You've made it. You're successful. You're keeping up with your peers. But then the next month, the payment hits your account. And the insurance bill comes, and you fill up the tank, and it costs $90. And suddenly that feeling of success is replaced with a low-grade anxiety about money that you can't quite shake. Meanwhile, your other coworker who's been quietly driving a paid-off Toyota Camry and investing the difference, she's got $150,000 in her retirement accounts, no debt, and the freedom to take a year off work if she wanted to without financial stress. But nobody knows that because it's invisible. You can't see someone's investment portfolio in the parking lot. This is the comparison trap. We compare ourselves on the visible markers of success, the car, the house, the clothes, while completely ignoring the invisible markers that actually matter, like net worth, financial freedom, and peace of mind. And trucks are particularly effective at triggering this comparison because they're so visible and because they've become so culturally associated with success and capability. It's not like buying an expensive watch that most people won't notice. Everyone sees your truck. Everyone knows roughly what it costs. It broadcasts your status constantly. I watched a friend go through this exact spiral. He was doing fine with his Honda Accord, saving money, making progress. Then 3 of his friends bought new trucks within 6 months of each other. And he started feeling left behind, like he was the only one who couldn't afford to upgrade, even though his finances were probably better than theirs because he wasn't hemorrhaging money on truck payments. Eventually, he caved, bought a $72,000 Silverado, loved it for about 3 months. Then the novelty wore off, and he was just left with a massive payment and the reality that he'd set his financial goals back by years. He sold it after 18 months, taking a huge loss on depreciation, and went back to a sensible car. But the damage was done. The rationalization game. What's fascinating is how good people are at rationalizing these purchases to themselves. Because deep down, most people know that a $70,000 truck is not a rational financial decision if they don't need it for work. So they create elaborate justifications. I need it for the weather. Do you really? Front-wheel drive cars with decent tires handle snow fine for 99% of situations. And how many days a year do you actually encounter snow? It's safer for my family. Trucks actually have higher fatality rates than sedans in many types of crashes because of their higher center of gravity and increased rollover risk. Safety is not the reason. It holds its value better. This is partially true. Trucks do depreciate slower than many cars, but you're still losing $15,000 to $20,000 in the first 3 years. And you paid way more up front. The math doesn't work out in your favor. I need the space. For what exactly? How often are you transporting things that wouldn't fit in a sedan trunk or a small SUV that costs half as much? It's an investment. No, it's not. It's a depreciating asset. The moment you drive it off the lot, you lost money. It will never be worth more than what you paid. It generates zero income. It's the opposite of an investment. But people tell themselves these stories because admitting the truth is uncomfortable. The truth is, I bought this truck because it makes me feel successful and capable, and I like how people look at me when I drive it. That's honest, but it's also kind of embarrassing to admit that you spent $70,000 on a feeling. I had a moment of clarity about this when I was shopping for a new vehicle a few years ago. I test drove an F-150, and I loved it. I mean, I genuinely loved how it felt to drive, how commanding the seating position was, how solid it felt. And I started doing the rationalization in my head. Well, I could use it to help friends move. And I camp sometimes. And the resale value. Then I forced myself to be honest. Jack, you're going to use this truck as a truck maybe 4 times a year? The other 361 days, it's just an expensive daily driver that gets bad gas mileage. You're trying to justify a feeling with fake logic. So I bought a used SUV for half the price and put the savings toward investments. And you know what? I don't regret it for a second. The momentary ego boost from the truck would have worn off. The compound interest from the money I didn't spend will last forever. The cultural permission part of what makes the truck thing so pernicious is that American culture has given people permission, even encouragement, to make this financial mistake. Trucks are seen as patriotic, practical, masculine, all-American. Criticizing someone's truck purchase is almost like criticizing them as a person. And the marketing reinforces this constantly. Every truck commercial is about heritage, hard work, building America, being tough and capable. They're not selling you transportation. They're selling you identity. And identity is worth way more than $70,000 to a lot of people. There's also this weird thing where having a truck payment is seen as normal, expected, just part of being a responsible adult. Yeah, I've got a car payment, doesn't everyone? No, no, not everyone needs to be in permanent debt for transportation. But it's become so normalized that people think you're weird if you drive a paid-off vehicle. I know people who will judge you for spending $150 on a nice dinner, but they're paying $1,200 a month for a truck they don't need and think that's perfectly reasonable. The cultural permission is so strong that it overrides basic financial logic. And here's what's sad. This permission is strongest among the people who can least afford it. White-collar professionals making $150,000 are buying $70,000 trucks. But so are people making $55,000, and for them, it's absolutely devastating financially. They're spending 20% or more of their gross income on a vehicle, leaving almost nothing for savings, for emergencies, for building wealth. The truck has become a symbol of having made it, and people are willing to destroy their financial futures to maintain that symbol. Because the culture tells them it's okay, it's normal, it's what you're supposed to do when you're successful. Breaking free from the ego purchase. So if you're reading this and you're currently driving a truck you don't really need, or you're thinking about buying one, or you're caught in any version of this ego purchase trap, what do? First, get brutally honest with yourself about why you want what you want. Strip away the rationalizations and get to the real reason. If you can say, I want this truck because it makes me feel successful and I'm willing to pay $12,000 a year for that feeling, then at least you're being honest. You might still make the purchase, but you're not lying to yourself about what it is. Second, calculate the actual opportunity cost. Not just what it costs, but what else you could do with that money. What wealth you could build. What financial security you could achieve. What options you could create for yourself. Make it real and specific. Third, find other ways to meet the underlying need on. If you want to feel successful, there are much cheaper ways to get that feeling. If you want people's respect, focus on being competent and kind, not on what you drive. If you want to feel capable, actually develop skills instead of buying a symbol of capability. Fourth, spend time with people who aren't playing this game. Find friends who drive sensible cars, who prioritize financial independence over status, who won't judge you for being smart with money. The comparison trap only works if you're constantly around people who are status signaling. And fifth, give yourself permission to be different, to drive a boring car, to not keep up with your coworkers, to be the person who retires at 55 because you invested all those years instead of financing trucks. The ego purchase keeps you broke because it's an endless cycle. You buy the truck, you feel good briefly, the novelty wears off, you see a newer model or your neighbor gets a nicer one, and you feel the pull to upgrade. It never ends. The only way to win is to stop playing. The path forward. Look, I get it. The truck thing is powerful because it taps into deep stuff: identity, status, belonging, the desire to feel capable and successful. These are legitimate human needs. I'm not saying they don't matter. But there are ways to meet those needs that don't cost $70,000 and torpedo your financial future. You can feel successful by actually being successful, building wealth, achieving goals, having financial security. You can signal capability by being actually capable, developing skills, helping people, creating value. You can belong to a community based on shared values instead of shared consumption patterns. The ego purchase, whether it's a truck or a luxury car or an oversized house or designer clothes or whatever, is a trap. It promises you'll feel better about yourself if you buy the thing. And you do for a little while. But then the feeling fades and you're left with the debt and the lost opportunity and the realization that you traded your future for a temporary emotion. The people who build real wealth, who achieve financial independence, who have actual freedom in their lives, they're the ones who figured out how to quiet their ego, resist the comparison trap, and make decisions based on actual value rather than perceived status. So if you're driving that $70,000 truck right now and you're feeling defensive, that's okay. That's your ego protecting itself. But just ask yourself honestly, is this serving my actual goals? Is this helping me build the life I actually want? Or is it just making me feel a certain way while keeping me broke? Because you can't have both. You can't have the ego purchase and the financial freedom. You can't keep up with everyone else's consumption and also build wealth faster than them. You have to choose. And my hope is that you'll choose your future over your ego, that you'll choose compound interest over status signaling, that you'll choose actual security over the appearance of success. The truck will still be there if you really need it someday, but your financial future won't wait. Every month you spend $1,200 on a vehicle you don't need is a month you didn't build wealth, and those months add up faster than you think.